Thank you for joining me on this terrifying portion of my villain ranking list. We've gone over the most hated villains in the video before this, so check it out if you love villains as much as I do. I'm also going to be ranking the most iconic villains after this, so you're going to want to check that out as well. Friendly reminder, of the 50 villains covered in this 3-part series, they will only appear in one of the videos in one of the lists of these 3, so watch all 3 to see where your favorite landed. To start things off, we're going with Robert De Niro from Cape Fear as Max Cady. Not only does Cady have the look.
Yeah, I learned from the get-go in the joint to get in touch with the soft, nurturing side of myself, the feminine side.
He's also going to stop at relatively nothing to get you. After Cady, we have the killers from The Strangers. This is nightmare fuel for people like me. Home invaders who keep messing with your head. Nameless and faceless villains may not sound the most memorable or imposing, but that plays to their advantage as far as being horrifying. We don't know why they do this, and they could be in your very neighborhood right now. Before we jump into the next villain, I want to ask you to please subscribe. I have over 100 videos on my channel that appeals to nearly every kind of cinema fan. So please hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you stay posted. I know there's a ton of videos I have coming out that you're going to love as well, so that bell icon will make sure you don't miss a thing. Next, we have Keyser Söze from The Usual Suspects. Not only do we get the legend from the film, but the ending too is able to solidify how many levels he is operating above everyone else. He could burn down a village and get away with it. He's a chameleon, able to blend in however he needs to, and will look you in the eyes before twisting the knife. What is not there in physical attributes is made up for in violence and the unknown. After Söze, we have Harry Powell from The Night of the Hunter. Powell is conniving as ever, but what makes him so fearsome is his lack of empathy towards children, and really anyone. If I were in a situation as a child with the likes of Powell, I think I'd duck below my knees and kiss my ass goodbye.
Would you like me to tell you the little story of left hand, right hand, the tale of good and evil?
After Powell, we have Lee Woo-jin from Oldboy. Not only is Jin a damn mastermind, plotting an incredibly detailed and structured plan over the course of decades, he is driven beyond belief. Having suffered an incredibly depressing tragedy, Jin makes sure to make the man who he finds responsible pay. After Jin, we have Bateman. Patrick Bateman, that is, from American Psycho. Bateman is the personification of excess, greed, and losing touch with civilization. Life is about superiority for him, and he has cultivated a hate for all those he finds below him. His utter lack of empathy and loss of grasp on reality makes him a completely terrifying human being. Coming up next is Kyung-jul from I Saw the Devil. No title could be truer in regards to a character like Chol, as he is remorseless and callous in his brutal violence and murders. The structure of the film is incredibly interesting as it sees him on the ropes multiple times, but he is as resilient as a cockroach when he keeps coming back. If his crimes don't put a tingle down your spine, then his toughness and determination to continue his devilish lifestyle sure should. Up next is Ann Wilkes from Misery. Listen, if I'm ever in need of a nurse and it happens to be Annie Wilkes, please put me out of my misery. I know the sledge scene is what comes to mind when most people think of her, and it certainly came to mind when I added her to this list, but her hair trigger and complete control of the situation makes her a horrific villain. Up next is Jigsaw from Saw, which I originally had to convince myself of being a good pick. Look, he may not be physically imposing, but I take my chances with Ann Wilkes, for example, before I'd submit myself to a saw trap. The idea of leaving those traps mangled the way most are or not making it out alive is what makes Jigsaw an utterly terrifying villain. I don't even know if this is what Jigsaw was before becoming Jigsaw, but one of my takeaways from the series was never mess with an engineer. We're now dipping into the supernatural with the entity from It Follows. This is paranoia fuel to the extreme. You're always being followed. You don't know what the thing following you necessarily looks like. Nobody else can see them, and if you get caught, you're as good as dead. It's a genius level premise and a movie I adore and utterly horrific to think about. Now we're into one of my favorite horror movies of all time with Jack Torrance from The Shining.
Here's Johnny!
When Jack snaps, there is absolutely nothing like it, besides maybe a Slim Jim. Nicholson plays unhinged so bloody well that this is genuinely one of the best horror performances of all time. If I had this guy chasing me, I'd need my special pants that are yellow on the front and brown in the back to really make it through. This could have easily made the iconic list, but his performance was so good at scaring me in a realistic way that I felt it was proper to put him on the most terrifying list instead. Coming up next is John Doe from Seven. The intellect it took to plan everything out just right, the violence and the torture of his victims, and the coldness of this man make him so scary. Whereas Torrance was bombastic and loony even, Doe is calculated in that he seems like a legitimately criminally insane person. Doe believes his cause to be noble and right, and sometimes there is nothing more terrifying than that. Up next is Peter and Paul from Funny Games. I've never seen the English version, so I'm talking specifically about the German version, but I'm sure this applies to both. Peter and Paul are the definition of psychopaths. They play sick games on families to get their kicks, and there's only the motivation of getting their kicks, and that leaves nothing for you to do about it, as they are kind of upper tier villains and are untouchable by plot armor, which is the strongest of any armors. The thought of facing these lads gives me chills. Up next is T-1000 from T2. Look, T-1000 is pretty cool, and I think we can admit that, but the thought of facing a robot who can turn into anything is basically an impossible task. Want to turn on the stove? Cool, now you're dead. Let's run. Too bad, this is pretty damn fast too.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bah!
Wow.
Bah! Well, I don't see so good, so I missed.
And he's going to reform from that. Coming after that is Art the Clown from the Terrifier series. Not only does Art have the look, he is easily one of the most violent and disturbed creatures on this list. He has no known weaknesses and will kill you in some of the worst ways imaginable. The only solace is that at least he will have fun with it. Cracking into the top two is Michael Myers from the Halloween franchise. He's essentially the unstoppable force, like Art the Clown, in that there's nothing you can really do to stop him. But I gotta give Michael Myers the upper hand on this list because he's the OG and is maybe not the first, but the first to do it well in being that unstoppable monster / killer. There's something incredibly creepy about a relative unknown, and Myers is very much an empty vessel. No emotions. He has the mask, and it's blank because we are left in the dark as to what he's feeling, thinking, and so on. Just a soulless killing machine. Coming in at numero uno is Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. Now, I can already hear the outrage, and yes, he is iconic without doubt. Also, we're putting him above supernatural unkillable threats, so I can see the pickle I kind of put myself in, but while those are scary to think about, like what if they existed, Chigurh is equally as scary and a hell of a lot more possible. He has no special qualifications besides being the coldest motherfucker on the block. He will stop at nothing and is always in control. He's a sociopath and will cross any line he sees fit, and the thought that he could get it done and that does exist in the world is the most terrifying thought of all. I hope you like this list. Be sure to check out my most hated list as well as my most iconic villains list that is a part of this 3-video series. And be sure to hit that subscribe button and bell icon. I will catch you on the flippity floop. Bye, y'all.